The story begins when a mysterious man walks into the headquarters of a powerful corporation. The receptionist is shocked when she sees him, but he simply asks to meet the company's top executive. Before long, security arrives and orders him to leave. He refuses and heads straight for the elevator. One guard tries to stop him, but the stranger easily pushes him aside. When another guard attacks, the man dodges every strike with incredible speed and gets into the elevator. Along the way, he finds an employee's ID card, which gives him access to the company's highest floor. He then walks directly into the general manager's office, leaving everyone stunned. Two people step forward, and the man immediately recognizes them as his childhood friends. However, neither of them recognizes him. The mysterious man is Danny, the true heir to the corporation who disappeared 15 years ago. Everyone believes he died in a plane crash along with his parents, but the truth is that he somehow survived and is finally returned. I spent an entire week scripting and editing this video for you guys. Leaving a comment and giving it a high point would mean the absolute world to me. Danny tries to explain who he is, but his old friends refuse to believe him and call security. Armed guards surround him, but Danny chooses not to fight and allows them to force him outside. He then visits his old family home only to find that the locks were changed long ago. Since nobody is around, he climbs onto the second-floor balcony and enters the house. Inside, almost everything is changed except for an old photograph showing Danny with his childhood friends. Seeing it brings back painful memories and makes him determined to discover what really happened 15 years ago. That night, with nowhere to stay, Danny sits beneath a tree listening to music. A stranger eventually joins him and the two begin talking. The stranger later searches Danny's name online and finds an old news report claiming that Danny and his parents died in a plane crash. This explains why the entire world thinks he is dead. The following morning, Danny meets his childhood friend Joy and tries to tell her the truth, but she refuses to listen and threatens to call the police if he keeps following her. Danny walks away, but suddenly a speeding taxi comes toward him. He escapes with a powerful leap, leaving Joy stunned by his agility. Later, Danny practices martial arts alone in a park. People mistake him for a homeless man, and a woman tries to give him money. When Danny notices she is handing out flyers for a martial arts school, he follows her there and asks for a job, but she leaves without answering. Soon after, Danny spots his old friend Ward driving his car. He gets inside and tries to convince Ward that he is really Danny. Ward panics and pulls out a gun, but Danny quickly disarms him without hurting him. Ward explains that everyone believes Danny and his family died because no bodies or wreckage were ever found after the crash. Danny mentions several childhood memories only the real Danny should know, yet Ward still refuses to believe him. Danny then speeds the car down the road and slams on the brakes at the last second, terrifying Ward, but even that fails to change his mind. Danny returns to the martial arts school, hoping to challenge its strongest fighter, but he is thrown out before anyone takes him seriously. While walking down the street, he is suddenly attacked by a man carrying a staff. Danny easily dodges the attacks and takes him down within seconds. The same Chinese woman from the martial arts school watches from above and is amazed by his skills. Danny then realizes the attacker is Ward's bodyguard. Several more armed men appear, forcing him to escape into a crowded marketplace. Danny puts on a mask and blends into the crowd, but the guards keep searching. He suddenly drops down from above, knocks one guard down, grabs his gun, and disappears again. Another guard eventually spots him and secretly follows him. Just as the man raises his gun, Danny senses him, turns around, and drops him with one quick strike. After warning him to stay away, Danny leaves. Meanwhile, Ward learns that even his guards failed to stop Danny. He becomes terrified after realizing that the missing boy he once knew has returned as an extremely skilled fighter. Ward secretly meets his father, and they agree that nobody can discover Danny is alive. If the truth comes out, they could lose the company and fortune they took control of. They also fear that Danny's parents might have survived the crash as well, which would destroy everything they have built. Ward's father realizes his son cannot handle Danny alone, so he decides to deal with the problem himself. At the same time, Danny returns to the park to meet the stranger who had become his friend, but instead, he finds the man dead beneath the tree. Danny is devastated and covers his body with a piece of cloth. He quickly realizes that his enemies killed him because of their connection. Feeling responsible for his friend's death, Danny understands that Ward has changed completely music and is willing to kill anyone standing in his way. Still determined to reveal the truth to Joy, Danny meets her again, unaware that she has already betrayed him. Joy secretly puts a sleeping drug into his tea, and after Danny drinks his vision becomes blurry before he passes out. When he wakes up, he is tied to a hospital bed while doctors treat him. Later, a doctor begins questioning him, but suddenly a man disguised as a doctor attacks Danny with a sharp instrument. The hospital staff quickly restrain him, revealing that he is mentally unstable and had entered the hospital to assassinate Danny. Afterward, the doctor asks Danny about the plane crash. Danny remembers being on the aircraft with his parents when it suddenly broke apart in midair. His mother tried to protect him, but a powerful gust of wind tore her out of the plane. The horrifying sight caused Danny to lose consciousness. When he woke up, he was surrounded by snow-covered mountains with 2 monks sitting nearby. They had found him and saved his life. Back at the hospital, the doctor listens to Danny's story and writes down everything he remembers, even though the explanation sounds almost impossible. The next morning, Danny is taken through the hospital with another patient who reveals that this is actually a psychiatric facility. During their walk, the patient deliberately provokes another man who becomes furious and attacks them. Danny defends himself and knocks the attacker down, but the staff immediately restrain him and inject him with a sedative. After losing consciousness, Danny later wakes up to find the same patient waiting for him. The man tells him that he needs to escape and secretly frees him from his restraints. He also gives Danny a chance to call someone he trusts. Danny immediately contacts Colleen, the woman from the martial arts school, and asks her to come help him. Colleen wonders why she should risk helping a stranger like him. Danny simply smiles and reminds her that she is the only person he has met since returning who has never tried to kill him. Colleen still wants nothing to do with Danny's problems, so she refuses to help and hangs up, leaving him disappointed. What Danny doesn't know is that Ward and his father are watching his every move inside the hospital. They send men to investigate the plane crash site and search for the temple and monks Danny mentioned, but they find nothing. This makes Ward suspect that Danny could be lying about his past. He then visits Colleen's martial arts school and offers her money for information, but she refuses to say anything. Later, Colleen visits Danny at the hospital, making him think she has finally come to help him escape. Instead, she brings documents from Ward and asks him to sign them. If Danny agrees, he will officially be declared mentally unstable and could remain locked inside the hospital permanently. Danny asks why Ward is doing this, forcing him to reveal his true identity. He tells Colleen that he is the rightful heir to one of New York's richest companies and that the fortune Ward's family controls actually belongs to him. Colleen is shocked, but wants no part in such a dangerous fight, so she prepares to leave with the papers. Before she goes, Danny asks her to deliver his bag to Joy. When Joy opens it, she finds the same candies that Danny used to share with her during childhood. Seeing them finally convinces Joy that Danny is truly alive and that the man who returned is her missing friend from 15 years ago. Colleen also gives her Ward's documents and Joy firmly says Danny will never sign them. Meanwhile, Ward arrives and notices Colleen leaving back at the hospital. The doctors pretend Danny is being discharged. They change his clothes and lead him somewhere else. But instead of letting him leave, they lock him inside a room where 3 men are waiting. They immediately attack and beat him, telling him that Ward sent them. Hearing Ward's name brings back memories of the friend Danny once trusted, the same man who stole his company and now wants him locked away forever. Danny's anger suddenly triggers the strange power inside him. A mysterious energy gathers around his hand. In seconds, he defeats all 3 attackers and smashes through the heavy iron door to escape. Harold watches the entire thing through the security cameras and is stunned by Danny's strength. After escaping the hospital, Danny has nowhere to go, so he heads to Colleen's martial arts school. She immediately orders him to leave because she wants no trouble, but Danny refuses and the two end up fighting. Danny keeps avoiding her attacks before finally overpowering her. Colleen still refuses to accept him, so Danny offers to pay a full year's rent in advance and cover the repair costs for the damaged door. Since the school badly needs money, she finally agrees to let him stay. The next day, Danny returns to his old home and sees Joy leaving a rose and some fruit outside. When she notices him, she no longer calls the police because she now knows he is really Danny. She asks where he has been for 15 years and how he survived. But Danny says the truth is so unbelievable that nobody would accept it. Inside the house, old memories return, but Joy soon shows him a legal agreement offering him $1 billion if he gives up his company rights, changes his name, and stays away from the business forever. Danny becomes furious because Ward is not only trying to steal his shares, but also erase his entire identity. Joy argues that $1 billion is enough to live comfortably for the rest of his life, but Danny refuses. He takes a few old belongings and leaves, determined to reclaim his name and everything that belongs to him. Later, Danny waits outside the company and follows a woman who leaves the building. She notices him and prepares to use pepper spray, but Danny tells her who he is. The woman immediately recognizes him because she once worked as his father's personal secretary. After hearing Danny's story, she becomes convinced that he is the real heir. Danny asks her to help him take legal action against Ward and recover his company. The next day, they meet to discuss the case, but the lawyer warns that proving his identity will be difficult because Danny has no official documents. Danny then goes to the old hospital's records room to search for his birth certificate. There, he notices a man dressed in black. Before he can question him, the stranger attacks with a bottle of gasoline, planning to burn the entire records room. Danny's strange power awakens again, and the two get into a fierce fight. When the attacker tries to light the room, Danny knocks the lighter away, but the man pulls out a knife and attacks him. Danny quickly overpowers him, forcing the man to run. Before escaping, however, the attacker sets the room on fire and leaves Danny trapped inside. As the flames spread, Danny notices an unconscious woman nearby. Instead of escaping alone, he lifts her onto his shoulder and carries her safely outside. Later, Danny meets Joy and Ward at a cafe and demands to know why Ward betrayed him. Ward coldly says Danny should have died 15 years ago. Furious, Danny slams his glass onto the table, and the situation nearly turns into a fight until Joy steps between them. She then says several painful things that completely break Danny's heart. Realizing that nobody seems willing to believe him, Danny walks away, but becomes even more determined to take back what belongs to him. The next day, Danny returns to the company with his lawyer. She serves a legal notice demanding that Danny's rights be restored and his 51% ownership returned. Ward immediately claims Danny has no proof that he is the rightful heir. The lawyer then places an old ashtray on the table. Danny tells Ward to look underneath it, where they find a message Danny had written for Joy when they were children. Ward still refuses to accept it, so the lawyer points out the fingerprints on the ashtray. After testing them, the results show a perfect match with Danny's fingerprints, leaving Joy and Ward stunned. The lawyer declares that they finally have solid proof of Danny's identity. Ward continues trying to delay the case, but even his own lawyers realize that things are turning against him. That night, Danny secretly attempts to enter the company building. Since the entrance is protected by a security code, he climbs the outside of the building and reaches the top floor. Just as he tries to enter through a window, someone suddenly pushes him. Danny falls, but grabs a metal railing and desperately holds on until his grip gives out. Luckily, a concrete ledge below catches him and saves his life. When Danny wakes up, he finds himself lying on a sofa inside Ward's office. Ward soon walks in with a cup of coffee, followed by another man. Danny is completely shocked when he realizes the man is Harold. Everyone believed Harold had died from cancer years ago, but he has secretly been alive all this time. Even more surprising, Harold is Danny's uncle. Danny immediately embraces him, overwhelmed by emotion. Harold warns him that nobody can know he is alive, then turns to Ward and says, "There is no reason to hide the truth anymore. Danny is the rightful heir and everything belonging to him must be returned." Ward objects, but Harold makes it clear that his decision is final. With no choice left, Ward agrees, and Danny officially regains his position as the head of the Rand family. However, as they leave in the elevator, Ward quietly gives Danny one final warning. He needs to be careful around Harold. The next day, Danny arrives at the company and finds several armed men kidnapping Joy. He immediately attacks them, taking down one after another before chasing them into an elevator. Danny forces the closing doors open and jumps inside, where he defeats every attacker despite the limited space. Before the remaining men escape, one of them mentions that they must return to Black Haven, revealing that the place is controlled by the powerful Brad Mogan. Danny takes Joy to Colleen's martial arts school and asks about them. Wanting answers, he goes to the Black Haven restaurant in Chinatown and demands to meet their leader, Adam. When several gang members appear, Danny recognizes them as the men who attacked Joy. Adam explains that Joy stole something from them, but Danny reveals that she was forced to do it and asks who was behind the plan. He mentions one name and Adam immediately becomes nervous. He apologizes and agrees to keep his men away from Joy and her friends. Back at the school, Danny notices that Colleen's wrist is injured and quickly fixes it with a simple move. Meanwhile, Adam and his men are attacked by masked fighters from a secret group called the Hand, a rival organization fighting the Bradmo gang for control of the territory. At the same time, Danny attends his first major board meeting at the Rand company. Since he now owns 51% of the company, Ward can no longer stop him. During the meeting, the executives discuss a new medicine that could save lives. Since it costs only $1 to produce, they want to sell it for $50. Danny strongly rejects the idea, saying medicine should help people rather than make huge profits from their suffering. He orders the company to sell it for the production cost, and nobody can oppose him because he is the controlling shareholder. A few days later, Danny finds a small box outside his room, containing a letter from Adam and a packet of illegal drugs. Danny takes it to Ward and explains that the drugs were smuggled into the city through the Rand company's shipping port. He suspects someone inside the company is helping the smugglers and may even be working with the Hand. But Ward refuses to get involved and tells Danny to handle it himself. Danny then goes to Colleen and asks for her help. He explains that someone is using the company's shipping port to move dangerous drugs and illegal goods, putting innocent people at risk. Colleen refuses because she wants nothing to do with criminals, but Danny eventually convinces her by revealing that he has already bought the building, meaning she no longer has to worry about rent. That Monday night, Danny and Colleen sneak into the heavily guarded shipping port and hide on top of a container. Danny records the cargo being moved, but he also wants to know what is actually inside. He secretly climbs into one of the trucks only for the workers to close the doors and drive away without realizing he is inside. Colleen quickly follows the truck. Inside, Danny discovers a hidden compartment and opens it only to find a man calmly watching a football match. Danny immediately realizes he is dangerous, and the stranger suddenly pulls out a gun and fires. Danny reacts instantly, grabbing a nearby metal container and throwing it at him, knocking the weapon away. A brutal fight breaks out between Danny and the armed man. During the struggle, the attacker pulls a knife, but it accidentally hits a nearby chemist. Danny quickly defeats the attacker and rushes to help the badly injured chemist. He then smashes open the truck door, and just as he escapes with the chemist, Colleen arrives and takes them both back to the martial arts school. They hope the chemist will survive long enough to reveal what he knows about the hand. The next day, Danny and Ward investigate the warehouses where the smuggled goods were kept. Inside one of them, Danny recognizes the truck from the previous night. When they open it, they discover the attacker's dead body. Ward considers calling the police, but decides against it to protect the company's reputation. Danny realizes the hand killed their own man for failing to stop him, and he finds a message from the organization challenging him to a deadly fight. Back at the school, Danny explains that the hand will send its strongest fighters. If he wins, they will leave the area, but if he loses, he will die. Danny confidently accepts while Colleen worries that he is risking his life for nothing. Claire also doubts Danny's confidence, but he tells her to stay out of it, upsetting her. Danny spends the next few days training for the battle. That night, he arrives at the meeting place where a mysterious woman in white tells him that losing means staying away from the hand forever. Danny accepts and enters the arena. Both sides draw a circle on the ground using their own blood, and the rule is simple. Whoever steps outside loses. When the fight begins, Danny discovers that he must face two deadly warriors armed with knives. They attack together and eventually knock him down. Danny remembers his master's teachings and dresses again with renewed strength. He begins moving faster, reading their attacks and avoiding their tricks. Even after being knocked down again, he refuses to surrender. Danny finally dodges both blades and defeats the first fighter with a powerful strike. The second proves much stronger and even breaks Danny's arm before knocking him unconscious. But Danny eventually recovers, gathers everything he has left, and defeats him as well. After winning, Danny realizes that his master's teachings gave him the strength to survive. The mysterious woman simply walks away. Danny and Colleen then investigate an abandoned factory suspected of illegal activity. They sneak past a guard and discover a hidden laboratory where drugs are being produced and shipped overseas. Claire waits outside as lookout, but suddenly sees Madame Gao arriving with armed men. Without a phone, Claire repeatedly honks the car horn to warn Danny and Colleen. They quickly hide while Claire drives away before Gao's guards can catch her. Inside, Colleen is confronted by a deadly female warrior and the two begin fighting with swords. Colleen eventually loses her weapon, but Claire returns and throws it back to her. Colleen catches it and knocks the warrior unconscious. Meanwhile, Danny encounters a strange man sleeping on the floor. Thinking he is homeless, Danny offers him money. But the man stands up and warns that Danny cannot go any farther without defeating him. The stranger uses an unpredictable drunken fighting style, constantly drinking from a bottle while attacking. Danny struggles to predict his movements and is eventually knocked down. The man throws his bottle at him, but Danny dodges, grabs it, and smashes it over his head. Furious, Danny begins beating him until Colleen arrives and stops him. Just then, Madame Gao appears. Danny tells her he does not want to kill her and only wants to know who murdered his father of years ago. Gao refuses to answer and orders her men to attack. During the battle, one guard accidentally cuts his own partner with a poisoned weapon. The poison quickly takes effect, and Danny recognizes the same marks he saw on his father's body. He finally realizes that Madame Gao was behind his father's murder. Danny gathers all his strength and throws a punch powerful enough to crack the wall behind Madame Gao, but she manages to avoid it. Instead of killing her, Danny captures her and takes her back to the martial arts school, where they tie her to a chair. Yaz remains strangely calm, refusing to show any fear. Claire wants to hand her over to the police, but Danny refuses because he needs to know the truth about his father's murder. Even when he threatens her, Gao laughs and says a member of the hand cannot be frightened so easily. Claire and Colleen warn Danny that threats will never make her talk, but then Claire remembers that the Rand company has a special drug that can stop people from lying. Danny secretly gets the drug from a doctor inside the company who agrees to help him despite the risks. Back at the school, Colleen injects Gao, and after a short delay, the drug finally starts working. But before Danny can question her, Gao suddenly passes out. Moments later, Colleen also collapses and Danny discovers that she has been poisoned. Her condition becomes critical, and she tells Danny that only her master, Bakuto, can save her. Danny calls him and begs him to come. Soon, a man arrives claiming to be Bakuto. After Danny confirms his identity, Bakuto examines Colleen and explains that Danny must use the power of the Iron Fist to save her. Danny gathers his energy into his hand, which begins glowing gold, and places it over Colleen's wound. The power burns the poison from her body, saving her life. After Colleen recovers, she and Danny travel to Bakuto's training center. This is just part 1 of the story. I'll drop part 2 as soon as we hit 50 plus comments and 50k plus hype points. Enjoy the watch.